sign or not sign some bills, as well as take some stuff out of the general budget. So, you know, that's still a work in process. But with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Rich, and we're going to get started on these brief slideshows.
Well, I just want to be clear, John Tobia represents District 31, which is pretty much from here south in Satellite Beach, and I represent District 30, which is about from here north in Satellite Beach. We fight over who represents the best half of Satellite Beach. You guys can decide. I'm pretty sure it's me. North side. North side.
We are the Satellite High Caucus.
We are. We both graduated from Satellite. Me a couple years, I think, before John. We were both here for Scotty's big birthday party a few days ago. We both met her in detention in Delora. So we're products of the Brevard County school system. John and I were both elected in 2008, for those that don't know us, and re-elected subsequently in 2010. So we just completed our third session in Tallahassee. One thing that has remained constant since we joined the legislature was that we had no money. That we've, unlike our predecessors, we were always in a downward budget or a lean time, so to speak, and have had to do more cutting than anything else, which, from our standpoint, in many cases is a very good thing, and from some of your standpoints is a bad thing. And we'll go through those as we go along. So these were our principles in 2011. We're going to balance our budget with no increase of taxes or fees. Let's be clear, as legislators, we have only one job in Florida. Per the Constitution of this great state, our one and only job is to balance the budget. We must leave Tallahassee with a balanced budget. And we had made the decision to do that without raising taxes or fees. That is, in some cases, a lesson learned from years past. It's also a principle that you use when you have 1.1 million people unemployed. Encourage private sector growth through economic activity, limit the scope of government, promote personal responsibility, advance public safety, protect individual liberties, and strengthen Florida's families. Next slide, Jay.
Our budget, we ended up with slightly under a $70 billion budget, a little bit less than what we had last year, which deals with a $4 billion plus shortfall. What accounted for that shortfall? Obviously, stimulus dollars were done, but the large part of our budget is mandates from the federal government through health care, and that balloons each and every year. So we're forced to spend a larger percentage of our pie on health care, thus allowing us to spend less money on other things, public safety and health care. So when you see our budget about the same, understand a greater portion of that's going to health care and shrinking the other parts of our budget. So that's why we had such a big shortfall, but our budget actually was only slightly less than it was the previous year.
And John, we failed to mention the whole process here. We're just going to go through this brief overview to give you guys some ideas on things you might want to talk about. Many of you have come here with already ideas you want to talk to us about. There's those blue cards right there. Bethany, would you just hold those blue cards up for me? If you have a card, great, fill it out, raise it up, and one of the staff will come get it. If you need one, raise your hand, and one of the staff will come bring it to you. What we're going to do is we try very hard. Those of you that have been here before know we do it. We don't play favorites. We try not to repeat questions, but we'll just take them in the order they come. You might see us divvy them up because some topics are John's and some are mine. But for the most part, we're just going to try to get through them all and sharp at 8 o'clock. So if you have a question, especially if you spur a question, just raise your hand. Raise your hand when we spur the question so that you don't forget it and we can get you the card right away and get you right in the pile. So you won't interrupt us by raising your hand. One of the ladies will come right away and get it to you. So this is where we ended up. K-12 education is the largest portion of our budget at $8.6 billion in millions. And then healthcare, justice, higher ed, transportation, economic development, government ops, which is Tallahassee, ag and natural resources, and then appropriate.
Yeah, this gets a little bit too much in the weeds, but that's general revenues. In other words, that's the money we can spend, okay? It's not part of that mandate money that's coming down. That's the cookie jar that we have the ability to divvy out without having to placate what the federal government mandates us to do for X, Y, and Z. So that's where you
go
really
back
tell
one, James. This slide's a bit misleading. We should have used the other one. This one is the dollars we spend out of general revenue. The biggest money that we spend each year is on Medicaid, but here it's in second place. because this is only general revenue dollars. There's a whole lot more spent from trust funds and from federal dollars that are not shown here. So although this is close, because K through 12 and healthcare are neck and neck, both about a third of the budget, in the actual overall budget, Medicaid is number one at about 33% of the budget.
So in other words, if you really want to see our priorities, you don't look at our overall budget, because that's what the federal government forces on us. You look at what we have the authority to spend, and that's general revenue, and that probably sums up our priorities better than anything else. So that's the general revenue pie chart.
Thanks, James. Well, I'll take this slide. This year we did reform the FRS system, the full retirement system. We increased the age and years of service for all employees, different for our law enforcement and fire and our general employees. Every employee in the state now has to, as of July 1st, make a 3% contribution to their pension. The cost of living adjustment is on hiatus for 5 years. The deferred retirement option program, that's a drop program. It remained in effect. The interest rate, however, was dropped from 6.5% to 1.3%. The retiree health insurance subsidy remained. Defined benefit option and the current accrual rates all remain. There's a few other changes that took place that we can go over a little bit later that aren't on that slide. But we did save about $1.1 billion in the general revenue by reforming the Florida retirement system. And you know, not to, Rich certainly did not toot his own horn, but there was a great balancing act between the Senate, the House, the governor's office, and both parties, and Rich pretty much single-handedly took care of this and made sure that people were affected as little as possible and was responsible with taxpayer dollars as possible. Every state that has this type of system, people that are enrolled in the system pay into it. So we were the only state not to do this. That being said, it was extremely, from the outfield, I was extremely impressed. As a younger member in the House against senior members in the Senate, if you look at what the Senate proposed, if you look at what the governor proposed, and if you look at what the House proposed, we probably were more moderate on reform, and that we ended up with the House, overwhelmingly the House proposal. And that was Representative Rich Workman here. He single-handedly pretty much made that come to fruition, thus allowing us to balance the budget and deal with other concerns like health care and education. You got it. All right. Homeowner insurance, we also did some change. Homeowner insurance, many of these you can tell we took from the headlines. Florida Today does talk about certain things, and they've had articles on most of these issues. Termination and cancellation notice, you did 120 days if insured more than 5 years, 100 days otherwise, that remains unchanged, 90 days if property or auto are together, 45 days for non-renewal of citizens, 45 days if OIR determines best interest of public or policyholders. This one has been widely misrepresented in the newspapers. Replacement cost value. Partial loss. Actual cash value up front, remainder as work is done. Let's talk about this, because many of you have probably have questions about this already. They may already be in the blue stack. The legislature before me changed the law. It used to be, and you guys have all lived here long enough likely to know this to be a fact. It used to be in this state about 5 years ago that you didn't just get a lump sum check. In fact, it worked just like this. But the legislature decided that we would just give a lump sum check. So, in other words, if you're through a hurricane, like I was right here on Harwood Avenue in my home, and the roof is unserviceable, enough shingles go away, leaks start, and you have to get a new roof. I got a check for whatever it was, $18,000 to replace my roof. At that point, I had a decision to make. Do I do it myself? Do I hire somebody? Do I not do it at all? Many people choose the latter. Some just do it themselves, and they make a little profit on that insurance check. That costs us all money. Here's why. Because when it is against the law to cancel you because you didn't repair your roof. So you get $18,000 or more to replace your roof. There's no rights in the law for State Farm to come out and re-inspect that you did the work. They have to take your word for it. Yet you didn't do it, did you? You went out, you took $18,000, put it in your pocket, you took some super glue, you stuck a couple tiles on the roof, and you're good to go. The problem is the next moderate storm we have, your roof is once again destroyed, and you're going to cost State Farm $18,000 again, hence costing us all more money in our premium. So what we did is simple. You will get a check up front. That $18,000 replaced your roof. The roof is probably only worth, because it's depreciated, say $5,000. So State Farm, using them as an example, will cut you a check for $5,000. At that point, you must then contract with a contractor, or have one supervise the work, somebody that's going to say it's done and inspect it, and then State Farm and you will pay the contractor until it's done. There's no out-of-pocket for you. You take the $5,000 you get for the depreciated value, and you give it as a down payment to the contractor. You sign a contract with that contractor to replace your roof. He verifies each step is done. They get draws. We do that. If you built a home, you've done that. At the end of the day, the roof is done. We are all protected against what I consider insurance fraud, when you just take the money and pocket it and cost us all more money. This actually isn't a new concept. This was in Florida previous to 2007, and this is the way it is again, and it's the way it is in most states. In fact, I dare say most of you have done it exactly this way in years past, both in Florida and wherever you come from. It is the exception, not the rule, to do the lump sum check. Just fill out a card. The next slide. Deadlines, must file hurricane claims within 3 years, 5-year statute of limitations for any claim starting from launch date. We have had a lot of reopened claims 5 years after the hurricane. We think that 3 years is probably enough. Mitigation discounts, maintains current discounts. Public adjusters, 20% fee cap on reopened or supplemented property insurance claims, advertising solicitation, and conduct restrictions. What happened? What's gone on since we've had no hurricanes? Our public adjusters have gone into the sinkhole business, and they go around and they offer you a free golf cart if you call them because you're cracking your driveway. They have little flyers that say guaranteed sinkhole coverage, yada yada yada. So we have taken away their ability to solicit in that manner through this law. Next slide.
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple things.